Hello everyone, it is Connor here. Welcome back to the Data Expert YouTube channel. Today we are going to do a very practical comparison, the difference between Table.SelectColumns and Table.RemoveColumns within Power Query. Now, I know you're probably thinking, look, it's pretty small, but bear with me. Whilst the two functions do almost the same thing, there there is a big difference if you care about performance, error-proof transformations, and clean, maintainable M code. Okay, so just to quickly jump in and see an example. So let's say that I want to remove order ID and invoice ID from the table. I have two ways of doing it. I can do Table.RemoveColumns, okay, and you'll see here that I have explicitly mentioned those two columns. Or alternatively, what I can do is I can highlight all of the columns except from those two columns and click Table.remove other columns. So as you can see, it achieves the same thing. We have this one here, Table.remove, and we have this one here, Table.selectColumns. The first one, what we do is we explicitly list the columns that we want to remove. And then in the second one here, we explicitly list the columns that we want to keep. So when is Table.selectColumns better to use? I would recommend this function if you want to future-proof your query. So let's imagine that someone adds onto your table two new columns or three new columns, let's say a new product category column. If you're using Table.select columns, none of those new columns will suddenly appear in your model. You keep exactly what you want to keep, nothing extra. This gives you clean models, predictable schema, and less accidental clutter in your reports. I use this a lot when building dim tables or standardizing inputs from messy systems. Alternatively, when is Table.RemoveColumns better? Now, obviously, Table.RemoveColumns is faster if you know that there's just a few columns that you want to remove. Here we just remove these two instead of all the other columns that we need to do. We need to remove all of these. So there's less typing. Arguably, it's clearer code because there's less rote, and it's easier to read when removing only a smaller list. However, the big disadvantage is the advantage of the other, and that is that if new columns are added to the table, then you could likely find some surprising results in your model at a later date. Both, in terms of error handling, both of them will basically throw an error if a column doesn't exist. Now, one way that you can get around that for both examples is that you can actually add something called MissingField.Ignore. And if for whatever reason, let's say the order ID does not exist here, remove this, you'll see here it doesn't throw an error, it doesn't throw a problem. But when we go to the next one, because we do not have MissingField.Ignore in, it doesn't either. But if we got rid of the posting date, so I'll just remove the posting date here. And when I go to removed other columns, it throws an error. Now again, I can do the exact same thing and do MissingField.Ignore, and that solves the problem. But really, you don't, unless you know that your table is going to be very choppy, it's going to change a lot. Like, you don't want to be using that field, I would argue. There might be some occasions where it's good to use it, but I like to keep total explicit control of my schema. Okay, what should you use? Again, it really depends on the scenario. If you want a stable and predictable schema, you're going to use Table.SelectColumns because you can explicitly state the columns that you want to keep. And if you only want to remove a handful of columns, you want minimal code, and you trust the source not to add any new unexpected columns, then Table.RemoveColumns will be fine. So that's it. That's the difference between Table.SelectColumns and Table.RemoveColumns. Both are very powerful, but they solve slightly different problems. If you find this useful, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment telling me which one that you prefer. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on our next video.